This is greytFM. greytFM.
Hello and welcome to Great FM, everyone. You know what? Before we dive straight into the podcast today, let's just take 1 second to think, shall we? Think about how, if it weren't for HR, we wouldn't have the option of remote work or even a hybrid working model. If it weren't for HR, we wouldn't have annual appraisal cycles. The fact that they don't always turn out how we want them to is a different thing altogether. But anyway, we wouldn't have employee assistance programs and employee benefits or learning and development and upskilling opportunities. The list of what we wouldn't have in our work and career life cycle is really endless if it weren't for HR. And we've acknowledged this on the podcast before, but HR unfortunately sometimes gets very misunderstood and therefore undervalued, I think, personally. You know, the friend that holds everything together but doesn't really get the credit for it is kind of the role that HR plays in our day-to-day lives. And today we're exploring a side of HR that may not strike you as something that's integral to the function, and that is driving innovation culture within an organization. Anurag Darira, Head of Human Capital, Enkash, thank you so much for being here and for helping us with this conversation today, because it is going to be an exciting one. How are you?
Sure, Ahalya. I'm doing good, and thank you so much for, bringing me as part of this conversation because, many a times innovation and HR people don't really kind of relate to both things together, but it will be nice to throw some more light on how HR can be more innovative and, make it also part of the culture that they follow within their respective organizations. Yeah, so good to be part of this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you agree with all of those things that we wouldn't have if it weren't for HR? Are you proud to say that you're definitely a part of that?
No, of course I am. I mean, so just a couple of days back, it was the International HR Day that, the HR community was kind of celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very vocal in thanking every HR person on LinkedIn that way, because, many a times people only, and it is very common with HR people where they think that HR is a thankless job. You may feel so, but if you do certain right things in the right way, you actually make your presence felt and, your contributions be valued. It will no longer be thankless.
Mm-hmm.
Having said so, we need to continue with what we do the best, which is taking care of our people and our resources, and, rest falls in place automatically.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's a good note for us to dive into the conversation. Let's start with the importance of innovation in a company, right, Anurag? So I'm going to cite some research here by Boston Consulting Group that reveals that companies with strong innovation processes increase their market share by 6%, more than their less innovative peers. Now, when you look at this on a global scale, that's an incredible number, right? So from an
Right.
HR perspective, why should a statistic like this be important to professionals who may be listening that might have the opportunity to contribute to innovation?
Yeah, this is a very interesting research, while I've also only got snippets about this research, honestly, Ahalya. But basically, what the research is saying is that, companies that are really good at coming up with new ideas and ways of doing things,
Yeah.
they tend to do better in the market compared to those that, maybe stick to the same old stuff that they've been following for donkey years. Right now, why should HR folks care about this? Yeah, the answer is very simple, Haila. It is because HR is all about people, and people are at the heart of innovation, if you look
Mm-hmm.
at it that way, right? So think of it like this, yeah. So if a company wants to be innovative, it needs smart, creative people working for it, right? And what does HR do? HR's job is to find and keep those kind of people. Right. So they, by doing this, make sure that the company is a cool place to work, where folks feel encouraged to share their ideas and work together on new projects.
Mm-hmm.
Let me cite an example as well. So let's say a company decides to implement a new technology today that, completely changes how they do business.
Mm-hmm.
This could also be to do with something like transitioning from traditional paper-based process to a digital platform.
Right.
Now, if you look at it, it sounds pretty daunting, especially for employees who are used to doing things the old ways, right? Now, what does HR do here? They basically help the entire transition being managed properly, right? For
Mm-hmm.
which we may organize training sessions to teach employees how to use the new technology. It could also be setting up effective support systems like help desk, online resources, where employees can go and any kind of questions or any kind of assistance that they need is readily available to them,
Right.
right? And then in my view, HR also plays a crucial role in communicating the benefits of such changes to the employees,
Mm-hmm.
which is at the core of it, right? So this, by keeping everyone informed and addressing any concerns or resistance, we actually help a smooth transition in that way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Lastly, to kind of conclude on this particular thing, I think HR helps manage any changes that come with being innovative. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, trying new things means shaking things up a bit, right? So there are a lot of chaos and, people kind of are helter-skelter thinking about what needs to be done next. But when you need to bring calmness in such a situation, HR are the people who can do that, make sure everyone is on board
Yeah.
and have the requisite support they need.
No, I think that's a very important and keen observation that you've just brought up. And, speaking of shaking things up, I think it's important to also expand imagination, right? When you look at HR as a function and its involvement, or at least the potential for involvement in business strategy, innovation comes under that in some sense. But from your own experience, could you talk to us a little bit about how you've seen HR's role in business strategy really grow? How have we formed that inroad?
Yeah, I completely agree with what HR was in terms of a role or a function about a decade back
Mm-hmm.
has completely changed, in terms of what it is now. So being just an enabler, HR has become more a contributor towards business and its strategies, which I completely agree.
Yeah.
And these days HR isn't just about hiring and managing employees, right? It's also about helping the companies achieve its goal and grow at the same time.
Hmm.
So if we have to talk about where exactly HR can contribute when it comes to business strategies, things that readily come to my mind first, of course, is the talent strategy, which is all about having the right people in the right roles to help the company succeed. So here HR plays, of course, a very crucial role in identifying what kind of talent the company needs, both now as well as in the future. You, of course, have to forecast, you have to anticipate, and you have to work accordingly there as well.
Yeah.
And to do this, the most important thing is that, you understand the company's goals really well and work on attracting, developing, and even retaining the employees who can help you achieve these goals.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a small example, right? If a company wants to expand into, say, new markets, what would HR do here, right? As
Mm-hmm.
simple as, focus on recruiting people with experience in those markets, or, the other strategy could be provide training to current employees to develop those skills. And so moving on from talent strategy, another important aspect or contribution that HRs can make around strategies would be around its culture and engagement, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
culture can have a big impact on any company's success. So this could mean fostering a culture of collaboration, fostering a culture of innovation, or even one that prioritizes customer service over another, depending upon the nature of business,
Yeah.
right? In addition, I believe HR also works to keep employees engaged and motivated, which is essential for productivity
Mm-hmm.
as well as retention. Right? So, simple tasks like organizing team building activities, implementing recognition of programs to celebrate employee achievements go a long way in building that culture and engagement, right?
Yeah.
And specifically for organizations which are at a growth stage, comes a most important contributing factor for HR, which is around organizational design and change management. So as companies grow, as they evolve, there is often a need to, make changes to their structure and processes as well, right? And this is something that, honestly, even I'm going through my current organization,
Right.
where we help manage these changes by designing effective organizational structures which could align with the company's strategy,
Mm-hmm.
ensure that employees have the requisite support again that they need to adapt. Simple involvements like restructuring departments, implementing new technologies, bringing in automation in, whatever process is possible, or even merging with or acquiring other companies. Right, because again, when we acquire or merge with another companies, it's an amalgamation of not just the business or the processes, but an entire culture in itself,
Mm.
which goes a long way. Right? And so HR helps ensure that these changes are implemented smoothly, the employees understand why these changes are happening and what they need to do to succeed in these new environment. Just to summarize it, I mean, what I can think about is talent strategy, culture and engagement, and organizational design.
So, Anurag, what's interesting about that response there is that these opportunities are there, right, for the
Hmm,
taking. But it is, like we were saying, some sort of shift in thought, right? Of, okay, I can actually step into this and contribute effectively. I think it's
right.
pretty much the same for innovation. So, for our HR professionals out there listening to the podcast, hoping to be a part of a change or building of culture like this within an organization, when they find themselves faced with the opportunity of actually contributing to innovation culture, how can they immediately get involved? From your own personal experience, what would be the first three steps maybe that you'd recommend so that they can become an integral part of culture transformation?
Absolutely. When it comes to fostering innovation, culture transformation, HR can definitely get in on the action from day one, right?
Right.
And a few steps which obviously that come to my mind, not in any order of preference or chronology that way.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can speak about the first one is definitely, in plain and simple language, get cozy with the company's big picture, right?
Okay.
Understand, sit with your higher ups, dig, really dig deep into what the company is all about and where they want to go. So which is more about understanding the vision in the
Mm-hmm.
first place, right? This is very important because, it helps you then to tailor your HR efforts to support those goals, right?
Right.
And if I can again, just put it in one sentence, once you've got that down, right, you've understood what is exactly that the company is wanting to achieve as a vision. It's
Mm-hmm.
like having your GPS set to the innovation center. Everything around your innovation will be run automatically.
Right.
The other thing that comes to me as simple as again, fostering a vibe where ideas can flow freely.
Mm-hmm.
Many companies don't really, encourage free exchange of ideas or, empower the resources to a large extent. So,
Mm-hmm.
what I would possibly think of it is, like creating a giant brainstorming session that never ends, right? So it's a continuous process. Brainstorming is a continuous process. What HR can do maybe here is, help break down any barriers to communication and promote collaboration as much as possible, right? So
Right.
this could mean setting up cool spaces where, your folks can just toss around ideas, maybe even getting people from different departments to team up.
Mm-hmm.
And to get everyone throwing ideas into the mix like confetti will be the ultimate goal there.
Yeah. Well, I like confetti, so I think that's a good, yeah, I think that's a good analogy to use.
You
But also, you've touched upon many of the aspects of innovation culture that would be HR's responsibility, Anurag, and I think that that's very valuable because when you've got the opportunity, you want to make the best out of it, right? So you've got to target the areas that you can contribute most effectively. And I think, things like hiring the right talent, different initiatives, work policies, those are the kind of things that
Mhm.
HR can really contribute with expertise too, right? And therefore
Absolutely.
drive, yeah, this aspect of innovation culture. But I do want to ask you in your interactions with fellow HR professionals, maybe, people who are more junior to you coming up in the game, do you feel that there's some kind of hesitance still on part of the HR professionals to get involved in these kinds of areas of larger business strategy? And if there is hesitation there, why, would you suggest not being hesitant to branch out? Why
Yeah.
just go for it?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think there can sometimes be a bit of hesitation
Mm-hmm.
among HR professionals when it comes to diving into areas like innovation, right? And
Yeah.
I completely get it. There is none of the HR professionals to be blamed for it because, for given the nature of this function or this role as well, right? It can at times feel like innovation is an uncharted territory, right? Especially when you're used to focusing on more traditional HR tasks, right?
Yeah.
I see that things are moving in a positive direction as well. People are moving on from, traditional HR tasks to more creative, more innovative HR tasks as well, but it is a slow progress.
Mm-hmm.
So there are definitely some practical challenges that can make HR folks a bit hesitant to take the plunge into innovation. So
Right.
if I talk about, one big challenge is the fear of stepping outside of the comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because HR as professionals are often tasked with more administrative duties, right? Or compliance related work. So
Huh.
when, the idea of jumping into the world of innovation comes to them, it feels very daunting. Plus, there's always worry of not really having the right expertise or experience in that area. Then, followed by comfort zone comes the fear of failure,
Mhm.
Innovation, of course, involves taking risk, and that can be scary. I'm sure, we all agree to that, right? So they may, HR professionals usually may worry about implementing new initiatives or policies that don't pan out as expected, which could reflect poorly on them and their department. So
Okay.
it's a fear of managing the reputation as well in a lot of ways. And many a times from a senior management perspective as well, HRs are not really considered to be taken as decision makers or people who can move a needle that way, to
Right.
put it as simple as that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's always a concern about the buy-in from the leadership and stakeholders.
Right.
So convincing higher ups to invest time, and putting in resources into innovation initiatives can be a tough sell, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then defining on what the short term or the long term results could be is again a little ambiguous that way.
Yeah.
So having said that, there are challenges, yeah, but it's not the end of the world for us when it comes to innovation, right? So despite these challenges, I truly believe that HR professionals shouldn't be hesitant to branch out in the world of innovation. It's in fact essential for HR to embrace this role if they want to really stay relevant in today's evolving business landscape. And one way to overcome hesitation is, of course, by starting small. So instead of diving headfirst into a major innovation,
Mm-hmm.
HR professionals should start by introducing smaller changes or experiment within their own department, right? So this, in a way allows them to test the waters and build confidence before tackling any larger projects when it comes to innovation. Another approach I think would be just be open and seek out for support and resources wherever required, right? It's not that, you're doing anything wrong. You're just trying to help the company there. So whether it's about attending workshops, networking with other HR professionals go a long way, because you learn from their experiences as well. Or there are external consultants who you can partner with wherever you don't have that, domain knowledge or requisite expertise. And, finally, it's about HR professionals to remember that, as I said, right, innovation isn't a solo endeavor. It's a team sport, right? So wherever they can leverage wisdom, and creativity of the team that they are working with internally could drive a meaningful change there.
No, for sure. I think those are some very, very valuable insights, Anurag. And, the thing that you spoke about that really resonated with me is the idea of getting, a buy-in, right, from the larger organization. That just points back to the observation
Mhm.
that we started the podcast with, which is that HR has all of this bubbling potential, right? Eager to work with the organization, work with business strategy and
Yeah,
in ways that are very, very tangible, but it's
yeah,
always about that mindset shift, which I guess,
absolutely.
yeah, is a slow but hopefully short
Yeah.
process. We've reached the end of the podcast pretty quickly, Anurag, but I think it might be helpful to leave our listeners with a tangible example of innovation being driven by the HR function. Is there a
Mhm.
case that you'd like to cite over here? Maybe your own personal experience, something specific that people can latch onto and really use as an example of, hey, you know what, this happened, and so I can be a part of it too.
There are plenty of examples to give, Ahalya, but I'm sure people would be able to relate to a company like Google, right? There could
Mm-hmm.
be no one who doesn't know what Google is, right? And one very fantastic example that I can give about, driving HR innovation is Google's 20% time policy.
Right.
And it's a very interesting concept, whenever anybody gets time, right? Any of our listeners get time, they should go through this entire policy. And there are a lot of summarizations available online,
Okay.
and this typically isn't your HR initiative, right? If I can put it across that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a game changer, that has had a significant impact on Google's success as well. But I'll give you a little bit of scoop here. So
Mm-hmm.
what Google does is, it gives its employees 20% of their work time to pursue passion projects outside of their core job responsibilities. So effectively, if you calculate, it's 1 day a week, right, where Googlers get to work on whatever they are passionate about. This could be, about developing a new product, exploring a creative idea, or diving into a personal project as well, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being HR professionals, we may think, how does HR fit into all this? No, but
Right.
very importantly, HR plays a very key role in championing and supporting this entire policy. So they launched this policy in the early 2000s, and it has yielded very good results for them. Why? Because HR is responsible for communicating this policy to the employees, providing requisite resources and support again to help them make the most of their 20% time, and more importantly, celebrating the success that comes out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what makes this policy so impactful is that it taps into the creativity part and passion of Google's employees, right? So, by giving
Right.
them freedom to pursue their own interests and projects, Google has fostered a culture of innovation where groundbreaking ideas can come from anywhere within the company. And the results are, tremendous. If I talk about results, some of Google's most iconic projects, including Gmail and Google Maps, were born out of this 20% time projects, right? So you can imagine what
Wow.
this could do for you, right? But
Wow.
even beyond tangible products, this policy has helped them attract and retain top talent at the same time. So it has always kept Google at the forefront of innovation in the tech industry, and we
Mm-hmm.
are pretty well aware about.
No, I think that's fantastic and a very tangible example. Good on you, Anurag, for ending the
Mhm.
conversation with something that big. Because, I mean, when we look at the world around us today, I don't think any of us can imagine living life without Google Maps, at least. I can't
Absolutely.
imagine it. I would like not to. I shouldn't be allowed to be on the streets without Google Maps.
True, true.
No, yeah, a very tangible example and a good one, to hold on to when you think that it's too much. I don't think I can venture out into this side of business. I think we all can. And it's sometimes these very incremental ideas, right, that bring about large change before you even know it. Anurag, so on Great FM recently, before I let you go, we have
Mhm.
started this new segment, right, where we ask our lovely experts to give us a book recommendation. I think
Okay.
it really helps. And we have been talking about a mindset shift, nothing like a good
Yeah.
book to help, spur that on. So if
Yeah.
there's one book that, helped you really elevate your career in HR, something that, encouraged you to branch out instead of sticking to the traditional HR roles, maybe, give us that recommendation on the reading list.
The Great FM reading list. Not just good, get great with these books.
Just a caveat, I am not a very avid book reader as such, Ahalya. Yes, but I do read books as and when possible. And, one of the books that I read, during early part of 2010, 12 kind of years, when I was also pretty young, in my professional career then, was a book called Drive, The Surprise Truth About What Motivates Us, which is written by Daniel H. Pink, a very
Okay.
famous author, belonging to the United States of America. In
Right.
fact, he's been part of a lot of bestsellers as well there. So, in Drive, what Mr. Pink explores is the science behind what truly motivates people in the workplace, right? Challenging traditional notions of motivation, which are based solely on rewards and punishments. So he, in this book introduces the concept of intrinsic motivation, which is nothing but, the desire to do something for our own sake.
Right.
And, it very well explains as well how organizations can tap into this powerful force to
Mm-hmm.
drive performance and innovation. And what makes this book so valuable for HR professionals is its practical insights into how, to create a work environment that fosters intrinsic, motivation again. And, there are three key elements of motivation which, Mr. Ping helps us understand. And these are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So basis which HR professionals can design policies, practices, and culture as well that empowers employees to excel and contribute to the organizations. And whether you're working in a large organization or a startup, Drive really offers actionable strategies and principles there.
Well, I think that's a very good recommendation. In fact, on our previous podcast, we were talking about intrinsic motivation, and I think it's a very vast concept that affects a lot of our decisions and choices in life. Thank you so very much,
Yeah.
Anurag, for bringing your insights, wonderful examples and case studies and your experience to the podcast. I think Great FM is better for it. It's been a pleasure
Yeah.
talking to you
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure at my end as well. Thank you so much for, hosting me today. Yeah, it was really great to have this conversation and looking forward to more such podcasts, from other HR professional as well, which I could possibly, learn out of.
Yes, absolutely. And we will be bringing those podcasts to you, everybody, on the future episodes of Great FM. We're diving deeper and deeper, as we move further into the series, into the world of HR, and it's only up from here. So stay tuned, but also stay safe and stay happy. Adios.
This is Great FM.